The one thing I think a lot of people make the mistake of is trying to specifically hit one team. You don't want to hit one team for surge. You want to try find a spot that lots of people are going to rotate past. If one team is what you're relying on, you're gonna really struggle. So they want to, like, the reason I say Orchard is because if you go to Orchard, you're going to have people coming through via, basically you're opening yourself up to this whole area here for surge. If you get on top of Orchard, you should be able to open yourself up to all of that. You can control that spire there as well, although to be saying that, Steamy generally controls that spire. Depends on how quickly you get that rotation off. But yeah, that's a really good point. It's actually interesting to see how many people responded with that, and that might be why there's a huge disparity in top tier players finding surge, and then the guys who aren't so top tier struggling with it a little bit, is because you might have that idea of one team. I'm going to find my surge on one team. It does not work like that. You've got to try find a position of power that has high traffic relatively often. You can make it work by having someone like Looter on your team, like one of the better surge taggers in the region. But that's one of the things that this is almost like a curse. This pulling zone at an edge POI is almost a curse, because you kinda wanna stay where you are to stay dead side, right? Like they might have the temptation to stay up here, but then they've also got to be really proactive on surge. They pull a nice zone here. I wouldn't expect them to move, to be honest. They're in a nice spot for surge. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of like how close to edge it is. I'd probably prefer them to be a little bit more central. But if they move here, I don't think they're putting themselves into a much better position. If they move, the only spot that would be better would be Zate Hill or the top of Risky. Those are the two better spots to be on, or Spire, obviously, but Spire's out of the question. In this situation, would top of Spire be good for surge? Yeah, generally it is, yep. The reason they're struggling here is because technically they're kind of dead side, because if we think about previous zones, we had north as dead side before. So you got majority north. I mean, it's not like a hugely north zone, so you wouldn't really expect it to be extremely influential. But you had a zone that hooked all the way back, so you had a zone that pulled all the way north and then hooked all the way back this way. So you end up with a pretty dead area up here. So they just don't have many people around them. The majority of the players are obviously sitting here. Another thing you have to think about: as soon as first zone includes these sets of hills, if these sets of hills are in zone, generally you're going to get not a majority, but generally you're going to get a pretty good grouping of players towards there, which just means that if it pulls towards north, keep your mind on like a pretty decent gathering of players in those sorts of areas as well. Alright, so third zone has pulled. That's about as worst case scenario as it could get for them. Holy shit. I mean, to be fair, like I'd just be thinking about previous zones again. So this is one thing that an IGL should try and do, is catalog where previous zones have been in their head and kind of actively try and make their next rotations off that knowledge. So we know that first zone went north. We know that second zone cut that way. This zone, they 100% have surge sorted. They've got 3 kills, so immediately I'd be thinking try and be as isolated as possible. Now, the rotation I'm going to suggest might not be possible because of this team here. This team here makes life hell for everyone in the entire world. This team here will never struggle on surge because they see so much. But I'd probably try and suggest something to the effect of ending up here. I don't know how they do that, but if this to me is the ideal spot to be, because you're relatively central. So next rotation's easy. So somewhere in here, refarming a building or refarming a fucking brick or something. This situation here, relatively central, so next rotation's easy. And you've taken into account the fact that first zone went north, second zone went this way, and third zone's pulled relatively south. So this kind of area, if we draw a zone, north, residual dead side, west, extreme dead side, pulled relatively south. So we're ending up with an area around here that's pretty decent to get into. The only thing that I'm worried about is this team sitting on the thing here, which makes every rotation for them relatively difficult. So it looks like they're just going to white line, and they did leave that rotation late because they had to fight that, and that So this is the issue. Like that team's going to be absolute pest, right? This is not a great spot to be, and you never want to be edge third. So that area that I was talking about, that's looking pretty fucking fantastic. Like I said, this one team here made all the difference. Being set up on that fucking that thing, they're really tough for them. Honestly, I actually quite like it. I quite like how they just ran at them. Because if you constantly tried to like jump, build, they probably would have taken more damage. Instead, they just hard ran at them. Fourth, relatively neutral fourth, doesn't really affect anyone. Actually, no, they're not scuffed, but they wouldn't mind having a bit of luck go their way, which they do. They establish a nice bit of height, and they must pull first moving as well, and they pull first moving. So there you go. So I'm gonna have a look at. So that's their setup. So to be honest, I can understand potentially why they didn't auto-qual, because there was nothing in there for me that really screamed, we know how to deal with Surge, our rotations are fantastic. So I can potentially see how things could have gone the other way. So watch these guys play low ground, see if we can pick up anything special they do, see if we can pick up any specific strategies or stuff that worked for them. Alright, so to start off with, this team pulls first moving, but in saying that, this is one where generally most teams have pulled first moving. When a lot of the lobby pulls first moving, it's really, really vital that you start establishing your layer early. You don't want to be the last one there, because if everyone's there, you're going to get caught backside by a majority of the lobby. You don't want to be caught by a majority of the lobby. That's when lobby focuses happen. So it looks like Jachu is the lead tarp, keeping them nice established ahead. Basically, really, really simple mid-ground play. They're letting themselves get cut off though. This is the kind of time where I think being aware of your surroundings and making sure you know when to get up as a tarp. I think if I take that back a little bit here. Now, with layering, I think you should always have an idea about what is going... So, he's starting to move into new territory here. He should be looking ahead here. His worries, he shouldn't be thinking about getting kills, he shouldn't be thinking about anything. He should be looking at this. This here. This is moving up, and it's going up, what, 2-3 layers? It's going up pretty quickly. For me, he needs to get up right now. He needs to... And I know that comes second. But if he's establishing a layer, what you don't want to do is get caught, beneath everyone else. You don't want to get strangled out before the next zone even starts. So for me here, he should be looking to go up, because if you look over here, you can clearly see that this is moving up one more layer. Because what you never want is to be caught in the situation that they're in right now. They're playing a half-half box. I call a half-half box where if this is the lie of the land and your box looks like this. Playing in this is super awkward because you've got your limited mobility-wise. Your edits coming out this side are really tough. Edits coming out, you can't make every edit you want to. You can't move down. You can move up, but particularly in these sorts of situations, you get these almost like pile-ups. So if you have a zone that looks like, if you've got a hill that looks like this, and you're playing low ground and you hit here, if you've got a team under you, you essentially get a pile-up of people sitting here. Zones die out quickly, obviously, if the zone's moving up the hill. They're lucky that zone stops here, and I assume that it pulls back again, but we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm claiming low ground. This is not the time to claim low ground because of this. Look at that box there. Do you want to be playing through that box? Thing is, from here, their choices are, if zone keeps pulling, their choice is to go up into shit that's already claimed by other people, or it's to cut out into what is exactly the same sort of territory, which is not good. Or cut left and immediately try and fight someone here. So in my opinion, if they went up, they clear this layer. So we saw Jachu was doing his job perfectly. He was establishing the layer. He was the first person there. He was claiming everything around him. That's well done. But if he moves up here, he gives his team a lot more safety moving into next zone if it moves through. Because, like I said, if zone moves, anywhere in the direction here, they're not gonna survive this unless they wipe a team. Like, it's contingent on them killing a team, which in my opinion should never be the way. You want to find refreshes out of skill, not out of necessity, when especially going into third moving. So going through their own tarp is nice. Get to save all the mats. So big savings from a tarp that they made fucking ages back. That's nice, and it means they also got control already. Look at the amount of shit they already have control over before final zone pops. Pulls far. Now they will have to control space, but the amount of savings they made on that third moving, because they ran into one of their previous tarps that was fucking 5, 6, 7 tiles long, and then essentially it's just them picking people off as they run through their tarps, which they have good control over because they had lots of space control from before, which again I'm not convinced is replicable because it was already there. Obviously things have to go your way and RNG is always an element, but that's very RNG, a zone pulling back to your base specifically. So they clear out low, but I mean this is the same stuff, right, as those guys cleared up from height.